My name's Ian. I'm 26 years old, and last month I graduated from law school, top of my class, with honors. The ceremony was held in the university auditorium, packed with families, cameras flashing, people cheering, flowers and tears, and everything you'd expect from a moment that big. My name was called second to last. Ian Maxwell, summa cum laude. I stood, walked across that stage in a crisp navy suit and tie, shook hands with the dean, and held that rolled certificate as the crowd clapped. Somewhere in the corner of my eye, I noticed an empty row near the front, the row I had reserved months in advance for my parents. It had 5 chairs. All 5 were empty. I smiled through the applause, thanked my professors, and posed for pictures with classmates and professors. But inside, I was numb, because I already knew they wouldn't come. I had called my mom the week before to confirm, and she'd said casually, "Oh, honey, your dad and I were thinking we might skip it. Your brother's got that big launch party for his startup the same weekend, remember? We thought that was a bit more relevant." Her words hung in the air like smoke, vague, dismissive, and laced with that usual tone of hers, like my achievements were fine, but not impressive. Not compared to Nathan. Nathan's younger than me by 2 years. He dropped out of college his sophomore year to pursue innovation, which mostly meant hanging out with rich kids from Instagram and working on a pitch deck for an app that I'm still not sure does anything. My parents have always believed in him, passionately, blindly, obnoxiously. Every time I came home during undergrad or law school, it was Nathan this, Nathan that. Your brother got featured on a podcast. Nathan just met with a venture capitalist from San Francisco. Nathan's team is flying to Austin for a startup incubator. Never mind the fact that he's burned through 2 investor rounds, hasn't made $1 in profit, and still lives at home rent-free while driving the Audi my parents co-signed. Meanwhile, I worked through law school, bartending on weekends, tutoring undergrads during final season, pulling late nights studying case law, while eating ramen in a 1-bedroom apartment I could barely afford. I didn't complain. I didn't have time to. I just worked. I earned scholarships, made the dean's list every semester, and landed an internship at one of the best firms in the state before I even graduated. But all that barely registered with my family. When I told them I'd gotten a clerkship with Judge Harrow, my mom said, "Is that like being his assistant?" And when I passed the bar the first time I took it, my dad just texted back a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. So, when graduation day came and they didn't show, I wasn't surprised. I was hurt, but I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was the fact that they didn't even text. Not a single call. No, good job, Ian. No, we're proud of you. Not even a week. Sorry we couldn't make it. I stood there under the golden lights of that auditorium, watching classmates wrap their arms around their moms and dads, feeling a weird cocktail of resentment and resignation. Then I walked out, alone, got into my car, and drove home in silence. A few days later, I mailed thank you cards to everyone who had supported me, my professors, my study group friends, even my landlord, who let me pay rent late 3 times last year without charging fees. I didn't send anything to my family, not out of spite, but because I figured, what was the point? Then the bar results came out. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not my parents. Not Nathan. Not my aunt. I didn't post it on social media. I didn't share it in the family group chat, which was still somehow always buzzing with updates about Nathan's vision or pictures of his dog with captions like CEO vibes. Instead, I told my mentor at the firm, who smiled and clapped me on the back and said, "Welcome aboard, counselor." And then, this was the part that caught me off guard. He called his friend at the New York Herald, who wrote a small feature article on the best-performing bar candidates of the year. My name was there. My photo. My GPA. A quote about perseverance. It even mentioned my scholarship record and the fact that I'd landed a federal clerkship straight out of school. I didn't send it to anyone in my family, but someone else did. A week after the article came out, I was in the middle of boxing up books in my apartment, getting ready to move into a new place downtown. The firm had offered to cover my first 6 months when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find my dad standing there, in a windbreaker, khakis, holding a folded newspaper in one hand. His face looked tight, like he wasn't sure how to start the conversation. It had been months since we'd seen each other in person. He held up the paper. It was the Herald article. My photo was circled in red ink. I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the doorframe. "Why didn't you tell us?" he said. His voice wasn't angry. It was confused. Like he genuinely didn't understand why I wouldn't share the biggest moment of my life with him. Like he'd forgotten every time they'd made me feel invisible. Like the last 20 years hadn't happened. I just nodded toward the paper. Go ahead, I said. Read the headline. He looked down. Ian Maxwell, first-gen student and top bar scorer, joins prestigious firm after beating the odds. He blinked. First gen? You're not. I cut him off. You never showed up, Dad. Not for this. Not for anything. So maybe the odds weren't the only thing I had to beat. His mouth opened slightly, like he was going to say something, defend himself, maybe, but then he just closed it again. I watched the realization sink in. Watched him realize this wasn't just about missing a ceremony. This was about a lifetime of choosing Nathan, of downplaying everything I did, of letting me carry the weight of the world while they rolled out the red carpet for someone who never carried anything but ego. Before he could speak again, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I turned and walked inside to answer it. I didn't invite him in. I didn't close the door, either. I just let him stand there. The call was from the firm. I picked it up with a calm voice, my eyes still watching the doorway. Hey, yeah. Sorry, just handling something. I'll be there Monday morning. Thanks again. When I turned back, he was still standing there, but his shoulders were slumped. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller. He opened his mouth again, and that's when I realized he wasn't there to argue or justify. He was searching for the version of me that used to bend, the kid who'd soften when Dad got that disappointed look, the son who used to crave a pat on the back, no matter how late or undeserved it was. But that version of me didn't live here anymore. I waited for him to say whatever he thought might fix things. Something rehearsed. Some variation of we're proud, or we didn't know it meant that much. Instead, what came out was, your mom didn't mean it like that. About Nathan's launch. She just thought. I raised a hand. Don't make this about what she meant. I told you the date months in advance. You knew what it took for me to get there. I didn't even want to be a lawyer at first. I did it because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I followed all the right steps, I'd finally matter to you. I gave up sleep, summers, friends, and a part of myself trying to earn your respect. And you didn't even send a text. His face twitched. We didn't think you needed us. You always seemed fine. That stung more than I expected. Because it was true, in a way. I had always acted fine. I didn't yell. I didn't complain. I didn't lash out when Nathan got a $3,000 drone for his birthday and I got socks. I didn't protest when they framed his podcast photo in the hallway and shoved my scholarship letter into a drawer. I played the part of the strong one, the self-sufficient son. And in doing so, I trained them to believe my milestones didn't require celebration. But now, I was done playing that role. I needed you, I said. I just stopped expecting you. We stood there, in that odd silence that settles when a truth has been laid bare and neither side knows what comes next. He looked down at the paper again, then at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something break behind his eyes. Not sadness exactly, more like guilt layered over shock. Like he'd stumbled into a mirror and hadn't liked what he saw. Then he said, your brother, he's been having a rough time with the app. Some investors pulled out. He's been staying in his room more lately. We thought. Of course you thought about him. I cut in. That's what you've always done. I could be bleeding out in front of you, and you'd still ask if Nathan was okay. It came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't take it back. He rubbed the back of his neck. What can we do now? Your mother. She cried when she saw this article. Said we didn't even know you were moving downtown. You didn't ask, I said. He gave a small nod. You're right. There was a pause. I could feel it stretching, this uncomfortable vacuum where apologies go when they're years overdue. Then he asked, will we be invited to the bar ceremony? I stared at him, not answering right away. Because that was the moment. That was the test, the fork in the road. He was trying, in his own clumsy way. But did effort now erase decades of absence? Was one painful look enough to earn a seat at my table? I stepped forward slowly, folded my arms, and looked him dead in the eye. You remember when I was 12 and I got that citywide writing award? He nodded slowly. Sure. You wrote about the Constitution. And I came home waving that certificate. What did you say? His eyes dropped. I said, that's cute. Nathan built a go-kart. Exactly. I took a breath, feeling my chest tighten. That was the day I learned that even when I win, I'm just the side story. You've made me your backup plan. And now that Nathan's falling apart, suddenly my story matters. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. I'll let you know about the bar ceremony, I said, and stepped back toward the door. But don't expect front row. He turned to leave, newspaper still in hand, his shoulders slumped lower than when he arrived. But as he reached the hallway, he paused and looked back. I really am proud of you, Ian. We both are. We just didn't know how to show it. I gave a small nod. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was something like acknowledgement. A tiny step. As he disappeared down the stairwell, I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling like I'd been holding my breath for years. I looked around the apartment. Half-empty boxes, rolled-up rugs, a single framed photo of me and my best friend at the Law Journal banquet. It didn't feel like home, but it felt like mine. Then my phone buzzed again. It was Nathan. Nathan, saw the article. Nice of you not to tell anyone. Another buzz. Nathan, Mom and Dad are acting like you're some big deal now. You know they're just faking it, right? And then, Nathan, think you could help me get a loan? App's in trouble. You probably know some people. I stared at Nathan's texts, the screen glowing faintly in the dim afternoon light. Each message was perfectly on brand for him. Passive-aggressive, a little jealous, and somehow still managing to ask for something. It was like he couldn't help himself. Even in the middle of his so-called rough patch, he found a way to turn my moment into his opportunity. I didn't respond. Not yet. I put the phone down on the table next to a half-unpacked box labeled books. Keep. My mind was spinning, not just with what he said, but how fast it had all shifted. One article in a city paper, and suddenly the family I'd been invisible to for years wanted in. First my dad at my door, now Nathan in my messages. What next? My mom calling with crocodile tears and a guilt trip. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. A food truck was parked on the curb, and a line of people waited, chatting in the summer heat. Life was going on as normal, but inside me, everything felt unsettled. Like I was teetering between who I used to be, the kid who would have replied to Nathan with a nervous, "Sure, I'll see what I can do," and the man I was finally becoming, who knew how much he was worth and didn't need their approval anymore. But still, it was Nathan, my little brother, and as much as I hated it, there was a part of me that still wanted to protect him. Not for his sake, but for the sake of that memory lodged in my brain, of us building Lego cities on the living room carpet when we were 7 and 5, before favoritism and disappointment took root. I picked up the phone again, read his messages once more, and then, almost like a reflex, I checked the family group chat, the one I had muted months ago. It was flooded with pictures from his launch party last weekend. Sleek lighting, rented furniture, some catered setup with sliders and mocktails, a massive poster of the app's logo in the background. My parents were in every photo, beaming like proud sponsors. One caption read, "So proud of our boy for chasing his dreams." I wasn't mentioned once. Funny, I don't remember seeing a single picture of them at my graduation. My phone buzzed again. Nathan, you there? Then again, 2 seconds later. Nathan, if you don't want to help, just say so. No need to ghost me. I rolled my eyes. Classic. Before I could type anything, another name flashed across the top of my screen. Incoming call, Mom. Of course. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I didn't say hello. I just let her speak first. "Oh, honey," she said, putting on that voice. The one she always used when she knew she was in the wrong, but didn't want to admit it outright. "We just saw the article. Why didn't you tell us?" I kept my tone flat. "You said it wasn't a big deal." There was a pause, then a nervous laugh. "Well, you know I didn't mean it like that. It's just, your brother's event was already booked, and your dad thought we should split up, but you didn't come. That's what matters." Another pause. "Your father was so moved by what you said earlier," she went on, trying to steer the conversation. "He didn't tell me everything, but he said you seemed upset." "I was upset," I replied. "You've missed every important moment of my life, Mom. Every one. And when I finally made it, when I had a whole row saved for you, you chose to celebrate a failed app launch instead. That's not fair," she said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "Nathan needed us. I needed you too," I said. "You just didn't notice." Silence on the line. Then, "We're proud of you, Ian. We really are. Your father and I, we've been talking. We want to come to your bar admission ceremony. Front row. We'll even bring flowers." "Don't bother with flowers," I said. "That's not what this is about." Another pause. I could almost hear her trying to figure out what would be enough. But this wasn't a puzzle she could solve with a gesture. Not anymore. I also heard Nathan reached out, she added after a beat. He's struggling. You know how much pressure he's under. If there's anyone who could help him, it's you. There it was. The real reason for the call. Let me guess, I said slowly. He wants me to talk to someone at the firm, or one of our clients, or give him some legal edge. He just needs a little guidance, she replied carefully. A connection, something to keep the momentum going. Right, I muttered. So I do the work, he gets the reward. Again, that's not fair, she repeated. Neither was growing up in your house. I didn't wait for a reply. I ended the call, set my phone down, and walked to the bathroom to splash water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a bitter man. I saw someone tired. Someone who had carried a quiet hurt for so long. It had calcified into strength. And that strength, it wasn't going to be handed away anymore. When I returned to my phone, Nathan had sent another message. Nathan, you don't have to say yes. Just don't act like you're better than us now. I let my thumbs hover over the keyboard. Then I started typing. But not to him. Not yet. Instead, I pulled up my calendar and added an event. Bar ceremony, confirm seat allocation. Then I drafted a short email to the clerk's office. Subject, guest list update. Message, hi. I'd like to update the seating arrangements for my bar ceremony. I'll only need 3 guest passes. The front row can remain open. I stared at it for a second, then hit send. My phone buzzed again. Nathan, still typing. But I didn't open it, because I'd already made my decision. And that's when the knock came at the door. A slow, deliberate knock. The knock came again, firmer this time. I felt that familiar weight in my chest, the heaviness I always got whenever my family was involved. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked over slowly, half expecting to see Nathan standing there, maybe with that half-cocked grin he used whenever he was in trouble, but thought charm could smooth it over. But it wasn't Nathan. It was my mom. She stood there in a navy blouse and heels, a little too polished for an unannounced visit, clutching a manila envelope to her chest like it was fragile. Her hair was swept back like it always was when she was trying to seem composed. Her lips curled into a soft, practiced smile, the same one she wore at church when she wanted people to think we were a perfect family. I hope it's okay I stopped by, she said, like I was a distant cousin she hadn't seen in years. I needed to see you. I opened the door just wide enough to let her in. She stepped inside, eyes darting to the boxes, the books stacked on the floor, the wall with only one framed photo. She didn't comment on any of it, just looked around like she was cataloging what kind of life I'd built without them. She sat down on the edge of the couch without being asked and rested the envelope on her knees. I want to talk to you, she said. Really talk. Not through texts or rushed phone calls. I've been thinking a lot since your dad came home the other day. I remained standing, arms crossed. She took a deep breath and didn't look at me when she spoke. When you were born, everything changed. You were our first. Your father was terrified and I had no idea what I was doing. But from the moment I held you, I remember thinking, he's going to be something. Not just smart, you always were, but strong. Determined. I didn't say anything. I wasn't interested in nostalgia. I wanted the truth. She looked up. Her eyes were glassy. I thought if we pushed you, challenged you, kept you grounded, you'd thrive. And you did. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as someone who needed love, just someone who endured. And when Nathan came along, there it was. The pivot. He was so different. Sensitive. Fragile. We felt like we needed to protect him more. Give him a boost. I laughed under my breath. You gave him the whole ladder. She flinched. I know. I see that now. She placed the envelope on the table between us and slid it slightly toward me. What's that? I asked. It's everything we missed, she said softly. Photos of your awards I found in the back of the filing cabinet. Copies of your scholarship letters, the article from the Herald. I printed it out and highlighted the parts one didn't even know. There's even a little note from your 3rd grade teacher. Remember Mrs. Hanley? I didn't reach for the envelope. She continued. I also wrote you a letter. Not an email. A real one. I figured if you ever wanted to read it, you could. But I won't ask you to. Silence again. I didn't come here to ask you to forgive us. Or to help Nathan. Though I won't lie, he's in trouble. The app's failing, investors are pulling out, and he's scared. We're scared for him. I nodded slowly. And you thought maybe I'd rescue him. Again. No, she said, shaking her head. Not anymore. That's why I'm here. To tell you, we don't deserve your help. And if you decide to walk away from us, we'll deserve that too. She stood up and smoothed her blouse, suddenly looking smaller than I remembered. You've built something incredible, Ian, and we weren't there to see it. But I hope someday you'll let us. She started walking toward the door, but paused with her hand on the knob. Your bar ceremony. If there's a seat in the back row, we'll take it. If not, we'll wait outside. Just to see you walk out with that certificate. She left without another word. And for a long time after the door clicked shut, I stood there in silence. Eventually, I sat down and stared at the envelope. My fingers hovered over the flap, then pulled it open. The contents were neat, organized like she'd spent hours choosing what to include. There was a photo of me at 14, holding up a trophy with a tired smile. A copy of my letter from the State Scholarship Board. A folded piece of red construction paper. A thank you note I'd written to my mom on Mother's Day when I was 8. She'd kept it. In the envelope was also a 6-page handwritten letter. I didn't read it right away. Instead, I grabbed my phone and finally opened Nathan's last message. Nathan, just forget it. I don't need anything from you. I typed back. Me? Good. Because I'm not offering. I didn't wait for a reply. I blocked the number. Not out of hatred, but because I needed space. He had always found a way to twist my success into his safety net. That was over now. A week later, the bar ceremony arrived. I wore the same navy suit from graduation, except this time, it felt different, like armor, not just clothing. The ceremony was formal, brief, filled with clapping and proud families. When my name was called, Ian Maxwell, admitted to the State Bar Association, I stood tall, walked across the stage, and shook hands with the presiding judge. The applause was loud, but I didn't search for it. As I stepped off stage and walked into the aisle, I spotted them. My parents. Not in the front row, not even the middle. They were standing at the very back, behind the last set of chairs, near the exit. My dad held a small bouquet, sunflowers. My mom clutched the Herald clipping in her hand, folded and worn like she'd been carrying it every day since she found it. They didn't wave. They didn't call out. They just watched. When the ceremony ended, I walked out through the lobby, ignoring the people shaking hands and taking photos. I stepped outside into the sharp summer air and let it fill my lungs. I stood alone for a few moments, watching as other families spilled out, laughing and hugging. Then I heard a voice behind me. Counselor. It was Judge Harrow, the man I was set to clerk for. He extended his hand. Impressive work today. Looking forward to having you on board. Thank you, sir, I said, shaking his hand. As he turned to leave, he added over his shoulder, You've earned this. Every bit of it. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. I nodded, his words sinking in deeper than he probably intended. And then, slowly, I turned to see my parents standing at a respectful distance, unsure if they were allowed to approach. This time, I gave a small nod. They walked over. My dad held out the bouquet. We didn't know what kind you liked. I took them. I'm not promising anything, I said. My mom nodded. That's okay. We just wanted to be here. I looked down at the sunflowers. Bright, stubborn things. They grew toward the light no matter what. Let's go get lunch, I said. Just lunch. No speeches. No questions about Nathan. They nodded again. Quiet. Careful. We walked toward the car together. Not as a healed family. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, as something new. And this time, I led the way.